Hey guys, this is Max and welcome to an improved version of the story behind the shoot. Improved because for the very first time we will have behind the scene footage and you get a much better idea of how the shoot actually took place and what happened on site. The reason for that is that through YouTube I found another Munich-based film nut who is really excited about shooting film, who is an amazing analog photographer, who develops his own black and white film and even is capable of doing his own prints. He's also very fond of YouTube and always wanted to create his own YouTube channel and kind of suggested, hey, why don't we just join forces and do it together? And I was more than happy about that particular suggestion. And that's what we do. So from now on, you will see a lot of videos with not only me, but with my new partner in crime, Jules, whom you will also briefly see later in the video. So today we talk about a completely analog photo shoot in nature, in the wild. We had 3 cameras, 2 models, and besides me, the one photographer, also one videographer.
There's nothing left to hide. You've seen my dark side. Our love was a lie. There's no reason for you to cry.
So we started out really early in the morning and around 5 a.m. driving out of town to a beautiful valley where the River Isar crosses that is surrounded by mountains. So a really nice scenery, nature scenery for these kinds of portraits. Unfortunately, we arrived a bit too early on site, so we had to wait a little bit until it was possible to shoot Portra 400, rated at ISO 400 at about a 1/60th of a second. So I always want to make sure when I don't shoot with a tripod that I have at least 1/60th of a second as a shutter speed to ensure good results. So we had at least 30 or 40 minutes left to spare, and I used this time to scout the location and find the best spots, and of course also to brief the models. One of them had never shot or had never done a complete analog photo shoot before, so I talked a little bit about what is specific about shooting analog cameras and what is different for her as a model. And most importantly, I always explain that if you're used to have your picture taken with a digital SLR camera, you're kind of used as a model to immediately pose once the photographer raises the camera to his eyes. And I explained to her that in my case I always need some time focusing and I need to double check my settings and things like that. So I will let her know once I actually will take a photo and that it makes sense to start a pose or things like that. And that always helps them to get a better understanding, and also to understand what helps me, that it makes sense for them to, while not striking a pose, to at least look directly into the camera when I have the camera raised to my eyes, so that I can focus on their eyes and little basic things like that. Also that, of course, it will take a little time until she will see the actual results of the shoot, so there won't be any looking at the images in between and getting a first idea of how the shoot is or is going. And of course, most importantly, that we won't take hundreds or even thousands of shots that morning, but rather a couple of dozen shots. And also that I will have to change film, or at least film magazine, every 10, 12 or 15 shots, depending on the camera that I use. For cameras, I used my 2 Mamiya cameras, so the Mamiya R Z67 Pro TL that I had loaded with Kodak Portra 400 most of the time, that I started out rating at ISO 400 and then I overexposed it a little bit as soon as I had enough light available. And in addition to that, I had my Mamiya RZ67 loaded with Ilford HP5 most of the time. Again, starting out at ISO 400 and then rating it at 200, or yeah, trying to overexpose it a little bit. Yeah, and in addition to that, since my new partner in crime, Jules, also owns a Linhof Technika, we also brought along a large format camera and took a couple of shots with that. We had it loaded with Ilford HP5 as well, that we rated at 160, at ISO 160. So also overexposing by a stop and then giving a little bit more light, adding a little bit light to ensure, to kind of compensate for the kind of light that usually gets lost in the long bellow. Yeah. And we only did that at the end of the first location, and I will talk about that in a second. So we started out shooting individual portraits of each model in both color and black and white film. And that was the most important part for me, to take really good and interesting shots of the two models individually in the scenery. Especially with the redhead, that was really interesting because she fit the scenery perfectly. I was kind of lucky here casting her. I had kind of in mind that it would look good, but I didn't expect it to be such a perfect fit with all the colors in the background, the greens and the kind of reddish fall trees in the background. That was really, really nice. And also with the other model, which is my girlfriend, Katerina, whom some of you might know already from other videos. That also worked perfectly with her, and the way she was dressed and everything. That was really, really nice, and I really liked the colors and how it turned out. And we then moved on to having group shots of the two of them. And what I found interesting here is that it was, of course, very difficult for them to interact in a friendly manner and to kind of portray a certain degree of intimacy. And that is completely natural, I think, to some extent, because the two models didn't know each other prior to that shoot. So they only got to know each other at 6:30 in the morning on a parking lot when they were both tired. And the second model basically transitioned from her car to our car. And they were both sitting in the back of our car, not talking too much at that time of day. And I later realized and also remembered an advice that I once read about a film director saying that if you already know that you have two actors who will have an intimate scene in your film, you should always make sure to lock them up in a room for an hour or two to ensure that they talk to each other and get close to each other and can create at least a degree of intimacy as a foundation for the actual scene that they will shoot later on in your film. And while I, of course, am not a film director, I think it's important to understand that you just cannot pair certain models just like that and expect them to perfectly work together and be open about it and feel comfortable. So I think you can feel to a certain degree the lack of intimacy here, and that they are not really friends, and that it was kind of hard for them to showcase that. Yeah, and then to wrap things up on the first location, after we had those group shots, we brought out the Linhof Technika and took some large format shots, actually only two, because of the cost involved in large format photography and also the time it takes to set it up and everything. I later learned that it took me around 3 to 5 minutes for each shot. So what you're seeing here now in the behind the scenes footage would look so good and easy. It actually is a little bit tricky because, as you know, probably, you basically start out with your wide open aperture and you use this to focus and to try to get the focus right. And then, of course, you measure your light and you set everything up to the exposure that you need and close the aperture to the what you actually will use to take the shot. And then you take another test shot just to make sure that the aperture and the shutter speed work correctly. And then you insert your film holder remove the dark slide, take a shot, and then turn around the dark slide and put it back in there. And then you've taken the actual shot. And of course, prior to that, you also have to do some fine tuning in terms of setting up the image. And what is interesting here is that you have all those tilt options to kind of change the focal plane of your shot and the camera. And we will get into more details about the Linhof camera in another video soon. For me, these were the very first two shots that I both misfocused, by the way. It is hard to focus with a camera like that, and as you can see here in the behind the scenes footage, I used a t-shirt, a black t-shirt that I put over my hat to ensure that I can actually look at the focus screen good enough. But nevertheless, it was really tricky to do so, to focus correctly. We then packed things up and transitioned to the second location. You see us here kind of crawling back up the hill that we really went down completely in the dark in the early morning. And then we drove to our second location. This is Jules, by the way, that you can briefly see here, driving the car. We drove to our second location, which is called Sylvenstein, and is very famous for people living around here. And there, Katharina stayed in the car because she was kind of cold and tired and hungry as well. And we went down together with Karina. She changed into another outfit. And then we went down there and took another couple of shots with both Mamiya cameras. Again, mostly color in the Mamiya 645 and black and white in the Mamiya RZ67. But also two more shots with the Linhof Technika that Jules took. And what is interesting here about the location, and that you can see especially with the shots that Jules took, is the combination of a beautiful mountain scenery and this lake, and the pillars, that hard pillars from the bridge that is crossing the lake. And Jules tried to take two shots that really illustrate this contrast with the Technika, and I will show you the images here that he took. Again, also he had some trouble focusing the camera. This seems to be a common problem, and we will both work on that. Yeah, and here are a couple more shots that I took with the Mamiya, and in one case I also used the hard concrete from one of the pillars as a background for a black and white image, shooting with the Mamiya RZ67 that you can see here. This is also kind of nice. Yeah, and we tried to keep things short because, again, Katharina was waiting in the car, and wrapped things up and went back to the car.
There's nothing left to hide. You've seen my dark side. Our love was a lie. There's no reason for you to cry.
Yeah, that's it about this particular nature shoot, and I hope you enjoyed this video and this new quality to the story behind the shoot videos due to the behind the scenes footage and my great videographer Jules. If you like this video, please remember to like it and maybe even share it with your friends. If you have suggestions or feedback, please leave us a comment in the comment section below. If you want to see more videos, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. As you know, I'm getting super excited about each and every subscriber coming my way. And yeah, I hope to see you soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.
There's nothing left to hide. You've seen my dark side.